to monitor, we're going to be looking at a larger universe.
So, so then the real answer is one does not relieve you from the threat of the other.
Correct. What the field office does each year is we do a risk analysis and we identify grantees to monitor. The A133 audit is something you have to have done every year, and your auditor, either finds records in good condition or he makes findings. So there's two separate things happening at the same time.
So I just wanted to make sure that we understood the distinction. So we're clear?
Yeah.
All right.
Are there any other questions from on the phone, maybe?
Got a shy bunch out there.
Here's a question.
Oh, I got one more in the back.
So you used the example of furniture, and that brought that to mind because we do furniture all the time.
Okay.
And oftentimes, by the time the person who is living in that unit has finished their residency, the furniture is pretty well used, and sometimes would be appropriate for another person, but sometimes it's really at a point that it just needs to be either go with that person if they want to keep it in that condition, or it needs to be replaced. And so is that the kind of thing that has to have the disposition?
The question was about furniture being purchased for supportive housing programs that then at some point it has to be disposed. And this is the point I was trying to make on having inventories of items that you have purchased and having a clear procurement policy that addresses maybe wear and tear and how often you might replace in other words, under what conditions would you replace that, if it was worn or was damaged, and then you would have to see how you would dispose of that. There are certain requirements for different types of things that you're purchasing.
Did I answer your question? Let's go back to the line. Any other
questions on the line?
All right, let's introduce Tony.
And I'm going to introduce Dr. Tony Brinkman, and who's going to talk exit strategies.
Not to be outdone by Jay Grant, I'd like to give a shout out to VA 504, VA 508, Denise and Aaron, and everyone who makes my job very, very easy. Thanks for everything you do to help HUD meet its mission in your community. As you know, for various reasons, HUD is delayed announcing or issuing its notice of awards for Tier 1 funding this year. Such has left many grantees either temporarily or at risk of temporarily being short of funds, or some scrambling to secure a line of credit so they can cover the period between their expiring grant and the time at which HUD will fund the Tier 1 grants. And although HUD has issued no regulations or guidance on the idea or the topic of bridge financing, we at the Richmond Field Office feel like it's very important to raise this issue with our grantees as they do their funding for next year. Overall, the message is it is important to understand that there is always a risk that HUD will have to delay announcing awards and funding grantees from year to year. Therefore, it is in your best interest to have a plan in place to fund your program during any funding lapse. To illustrate the problem, some grantees have recently approached their local jurisdictions looking for some type of line of credit, bridge financing, to bring them through or support their programs from the end of their current grant to the beginning of funding for the Tier 1 grants. As you might imagine, this ends up posing many problems. Excuse me just a moment, we have an announcement in our building. If your phone's ringing, you're not on mute.
Sorry for the interruption.
Sorry. If you're on the phone, I can hear you. Okay. So this, as we're talking about this, asking local jurisdictions to provide bridge financing, it really poses problems for these local jurisdictions because, as you know, there's really no guarantee that any grant renewal is actually going to be funded. And we've had our grantees actually contact the Richmond Field Office staff here, wanting us to provide some type of assurance that the grants will be renewed soon so that they feel more comfortable providing a line of credit. We'd love to do this, but we don't have any information, so we just simply can't do that for you. We encourage our grantees to have a plan in place for such eventuality. This might include either building up a reserve or building up a reserve, securing a line of credit that might be backed by assets such as gifts or contributions that have already been committed or capital assets. However you choose to do this, it's important to plan. HUD funds cannot be used for late fees or interest imposed by creditors on grantees who have suspended their payments. And that did come up. There were some grantees who had secured some type of agreement with their landlords that they would let them not pay their leases for a certain amount of time, but they certainly did want interest and or late fees, and obviously HUD's not going to cover those things. A second and related issue we would like to raise with you, or with the grantees, is the need to develop an exit strategy. Especially in these uncertain times, grantees should never assume that their proposals or their renewals will be funded. Currently in the Richmond Field Office, as with all our grantees and in all the field offices, we're waiting to see how Tier 2 plays out. We have in fact not received any information from headquarters except the little bit that Jay shared with you at the beginning of the meeting that would suggest how HUD dollars will ultimately be allocated. For these reasons alone, it's important to have a plan for the eventuality that your program is not funded by HUD in the future. I should be wearing a black suit because I'm bringing all the bad news here a little bit, but planning is important. In the long term, I think diversification is probably the wisest route to ensure the continued viability of your programs. It goes without saying that a program 10% funded by HUD is much less at risk than a program that is perhaps being supported by 70 or 80% of HUD funds. So all other things being equal. Now, in the absence of other alternatives, there at least should be a plan in place to suspend or end your programs that makes your creditors whole and provides your clients with at least a minimal level of care and support. And I can't stress that enough. We really, it's very, very hard to end a program, suspend a program, but to leave your creditors out there, and especially your clients, is something that should really be considered an important issue. Let me end by saying that alternate exit strategies are, of course, highly dependent on context. Not one plan will meet everybody's needs. We here at the field office are hoping that these type of meetings can in fact could actually act as a catalyst to spark conversations which might provide a list perhaps of best practices for program leaders when they're considering planning for the worst. And so that's my presentation. I'll take any questions you have about this, and I thank those grantees who helped bring some of these things to our attention. Anybody out there on the line? Okay.
Yeah, this is Annie from Portsmouth over at Park, and the points that you were just making about exit strategies, could you please include those in an email and send them to me?
I'd be happy to.
I think that would be helpful.
Great.
I couldn't get them all jotted down.
Okay, no problem. I'll be happy to do that. Anyone else? Okay, well, I'd like to reintroduce our leader, Ronnie Legette.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I know we have a bunch of shy people out there, so we try not to be talking heads here, but nevertheless, we try to inform you as best as we can with how we're looking at things that information that's coming in, and information that we think that you all should have and know about. So that's the purpose of us utilizing this method of communication, because we realize travel dollars are very slim, and also time is also slim. So by having these kinds of conference calls, even though they're not our most ideal form of communication, it does assist us in getting this information out in a very timely, cost-effective manner. So these are just basic tips and recommendations that we have for you. We hope that it's been enlightening to some degree, and your rep can also reiterate any of the information that was discussed here today. Annie, your information will be forwarded to you by Carolyn Myers, your CPD rep, and Tony will give her the information, and she in turn will forward that information to you. Also, a couple other notes. We are monitoring. We've identified respective grantees that we will be coming out to take a look at. Hopefully you have been identified and have been contacted. If you have not, you will be here within the next couple weeks. Again, it's not to say here we are, we're going to try and get you. It's basically try to assist you to improve your basic overall administration of the program so we can better administer and serve our clients. Also, on April 17th, we'll be having a central regional meeting with our formula grantees, but our competitive grantees are also invited. We will be dealing with Section 3. FHEO, Ms. Sylvia Berry, the director of our FHEO office, will be doing a Section 3 training. You all are invited to take part in that. If that's an interest of yours, by all means, contact your respective rep, and they in turn will give you some information. Mr. Burns.
Do you know approximately how long that training session lasts?
That training session is going to last about 45 minutes, give or take, but it'll be, a condensed version of it, because we'll also go into some other formula announcements and things of that nature that we will do with our other entitlements as well. Let's see. Also, we're going to be having an all-grantee meeting that's going to take place in or about September 4th. It's going to be here in Richmond. Information will be forthcoming once we're able to finalize a location, and then we'll be sending out invitations for you all to take part in that particular training. The agenda has not been identified as of yet, but we will begin to start putting that together as soon as we identify the location and get the funding available to do just that. Before I leave out, I know Gloria Miller from our program assistant has come in. I just wanted to acknowledge that she's here. And then also in the back we have our field office director, Ms. Carrie Schmitz. And I don't know, Carrie, if you would like to say a couple words, or if you just want to raise your hand, however you want to proceed.
Since I was late, I'm just going to raise mine.
Yeah, Carrie's with us. She raised her hand, and she says ditto to all the great things that we do here that's correct, and anything that we do wrong, she's immune herself from that. But nevertheless, as you can start to see how we're trying to bridge what it is that we do throughout the Commonwealth, from not only here in the Commonwealth, but throughout the country. HUD is basically trying to act a little smarter with the resources that we have available to us. We're trying to utilize cross-collaboration as an initiative to provide information as well as training and things of that nature to our respective grantees. We're also trying to ask you all to mimic some of the things that we're doing with this cross-collaboration by looking at the various resources that you have in your respective community, either they be competitive, competition, or formula grants, or local, state, federal, whatever those mechanisms are, to try and utilize them from a collaborative perspective as opposed to working in cylinders or silos. Because the more people you have, the more resources you have available, the larger the plan is, the more likelihood we're all going to be able to get it right. In this method, we call it it's all for one and one for all, and we hope that we're trying to do our best to give you all what you need, and if we're not, we want to know about it. So by all means, let us know.